This is pretty good. I've done this talk to you guys before, a lot of new faces this time, and they keep running me back around again, so I must have something. But our operation in Upper Jimbo, we primarily grow dryland cotton, and the other, every second year, the other year we grow a cover crop to then get our moisture back in. So it's a pretty simple operation. That's our cover crop. We're moisture farmers, really. That's where it all starts and finishes. Without it, we're out of the water. So we've just got to do what we can to get the moisture in, grow our crops, get it out efficiently with our crops, and then turn around and put it back in again. So we've just all got to come up with a system of doing that. The control traffic, to get this moisture in and out, the control traffic to get rid of our compaction is of utmost importance. Our other important thing is our ground cover. That's our millet that's just been sprayed out. We don't harvest it, we don't do anything, we just let it come to head, spray it out, and let it collapse on the ground as mulch. And then the zero till, which we've been doing for years and fighting with because of a lot of reasons. The control traffic and the cover, the good ground cover, bring it back together, and so that just naturally fits into the system. Whereas in the early days we started as zero till and we thought that was it, and then we tried to make everything work around it, but we sort of didn't ask about it. It's about maximising moisture in and maximising moisture out, and that's just a cotton root, just showing that, you know, without compaction, they just go straight down. The side ones, because we're white rows, they'll go out and get the moisture from further out. We've been on 2 centimetre control traffic now for 18 years. We started off on 60 inch because Toyotas are 60 inch. We could make tractors go to that, headers couldn't. We then soon learnt that we had to go to 3 metres, and then after that, the LB lines came along, so we started again because all our tracks are in the wrong place when you start doing it accurately. So we've been on 2 centimetres now for 18 years, and we do not do an operation without it. And if they drop out, we stop. We're very critical about it. This is some of the work that different people have done, different researchers have done at home. That's one of our spots of our thing where our turn lines are. So what we've got to do is get the maximum amount of our profile available to us. So that means staying on those tracks, keeping them narrow, doing everything right, not should be right. A lot of, you go and buy a place that's been run over and you might only have 30% of the profile that's available. As soon as the bulk density goes over 1.6, you might have a bit of moisture in there, but the root won't penetrate, so it's useless. So we've got to keep the maximum amount of our profile under that 1.6 to make it available. So you go and pay $4,000 for an irrigated acre and you can only use 30% of it, well, it's not that good a deal, is it? So this is what we've got to work on. The GPS steering, everyone all of a sudden came out with steer tractors and everything else, and everyone took it up because you can sit there and put in the paper, whatever you want to do. Is that better? I can hear myself there now. The steering revolution put a lot of people on control traffic inadvertently, but still they didn't take it seriously. This is a track in one of my paddocks a while back, the agronomist, diagonally across the paddock. Well, he didn't last long, but you got to, you know, you really do have to be serious about it. 80% control traffic is better than nothing, but it's pretty useless. Farm planning efficiencies. You just got to go, whether you've got to work out whether your runs are for drainage, which is a big help. Even in our country that's dry as buggery, and I'd love a bit of Rachel's water, but we do use them for drainage because we do get wet times. You've got to work out whether you want to be on a 9 metre, 12 metre or whatever. I think you're mad not staying with a standard sort of a width because it just makes it too hard buying, selling, contracting, whatever machinery. Then you've got to work out whether you want 3 or 4 metres. Well, I think 3 metres is the go. The only guys that are going 4 metres are the ones that really want to stay with a metre row system, which are mainly irrigators, but a lot of dryland guys. But the metre row is sort of here nor there, I reckon. For a high rainfall area it's too wide, for a low rainfall area it's too narrow. It was only ever made because that's about the width of a horse's ass to get up the rows. So you've got to do a bit of forward planning. It's no use just taking off blindly into controlled traffic. You'll do a lot of retakes, and every time you change your tracks, you're starting again. If you're setting up, there's nothing wrong with having narrow swath width. Ours is 30 feet, 9.14 metres, because our cotton picker, that's as wide as we can get it. So we're stuck with that, and then we'll do multiples of that. Now, two multiples of it is a pain in the bum because you end up with bits up the side and you're picking guess rows, you're harvesting guess rows, you're spraying guess rows. Your best way is to go odd multiples, so either go 27 metres, which that planter is, or boom sprays 27 metres, go to 45 metres, go 5. But stay with your odd multiples of whatever you are. It works so much better. Just here, you can see, I don't think that, not working. All our wheels on our machines, the previous speakers were having trouble with their wheels on the machines. Ours all run in tram lines. We have nothing out of the tram lines. I have a couple of cotton cutter that I have to run out of the tram lines, but so we run the ground bar wheels on the guess row. So when you come back the other way, you're using the same track. So you're only having one track in a swath width instead of 2, because the bar wheels do a lot of damage. Being on 2 centimetres, 10 centimetre GPS, yeah, they're great. They don't drop out. They'll be right. They're good enough. They're not. You go 10 centimetres either side of where you're supposed to be, so your track's this much wider, and then your percentage of compacted country just goes up. So you've really got to stop those tracks spreading. You've got to stay accurate. I just talked about the land wheels. Our unit compaction, I mean, we worry about the land wheels giving compaction, but we all run parallelograms with depth control, and they do a lot of damage, especially if you go in and do a wet fertilising or something like that before you turn around to plant it in a month's time or 6 weeks' time. You just got to have that in mind and realise that you are actually doing that. I think a lot of us run too much pressure because you've got to, because of the varying conditions. I think that some of the technology out now with the hydraulic down pressure, which is going to give us even all that out, is going to be a really big deal. And I'm trying to get it planted ahead that way this year. Tyres and tracks, I'm always asked about this. I run a bit of both, wish I didn't. This is my wild artistics. You can see your track, you run a round tyre in a round track, works all right. Flat track in a flat track. Where you run a track into a tyre track, all the pressure's on the outside. I've got a track tractor there, and the lugs on the middle of the track are brand new, outside the bald, and that's from running in tyre tracks. So that thing puts all the pressure down each side, which I reckon is just exacerbating compaction, not solving it. And same with a header, they come out with a header with a track on. Yeah, great idea, but still he's got the same problem. But even if he was flat, then the back wheel goes and puts a round bit in it again. So having both is not perfect. I mean, there's reasons for it, but I reckon ideally you either go one or the other. If you could be all tracks, be great. And otherwise stay all wheels. The wheels are fine now. We've got tyres that'll handle big weights and this and that. So much better than it was even 10 years ago. So there's nothing wrong with tyres. I'm going back to all tyres. Just different axle setups. Everyone sort of knows about it now, but still the manufacturers are coming out with bloody spools. And even though they're warranting them and doing everything else, they're still high maintenance. And I see quite a few machines down at critical times because of spools. You don't need them. The tractors are worth doing properly. You'll get your money back on them when you sell them, and it's just not a no-brainer. This is our cotton picker. Just this slide, just combine operations instead of having multiple machines roaring around. And a lot of the time you got multiple machines, you end up with wild drivers, and they take shortcuts. So there goes your good control traffic. If you can combine operations, like we pull a trailer that carries 4 and we just split them off at each end, that saves a tractor running in and out, carrying one of those out at a time, and they get bored and they won't run through, so they turn around and now with old mate with his header in the States, it's got the chaser bin as part of it, that takes out another man, takes out another problem with your compaction. So it's just worth thinking of if you can combine some of your operations. Track maintenance, we use Go Devils with a big heavy harrow, and we've had all sorts of things over the years and tried all sorts of fandangle things. Comes back to this old machine, she does the best job. And we go in straight after the picker into our standing cotton stubble. So because as soon as you mulch it or do something to it, you get trash that builds up and buggers everything up. So we actually do it into the standing stubble. That's where we renovate our tracks every second year. Part of your maintenance of tracks is compaction. If you don't use a track and then all of a sudden you go in there with a heavy harvester or a cotton picker or whatever, or even a spray rig, when it's wet, when you have to, you got a big deep track that stuffs things up a bit. We alternate every time we spray, so we keep all our tracks compacted. That also helps us with weeds. Your last spray track gets a clean spray next time. So there's different reasons for doing it, but basically you got to maintain tracks, and if you alternate them, none of them get as bad. That's just a drag bucket we use. That'll drag and drop dirt in the tram lines. It's a bit limited and it doesn't like stubble, but it can be very good for repairing if you've got a bit of cross erosion or different reasons. But it does work brilliantly in a clean track. Track erosion. We do have a bit of it. I've got one place that's got a creek going through it, so we get our ends of our tracks eroding. It's a bit of a difficult thing. I've found the best way is to maintain good cover there. Again, that's our cover crop sprayed out, or good, crop stubble, and keep your tracks narrow, because they're a bit like a roof. The wider they are, the more water you'll run off them, and keep growing crops and keeping ground that'll accept the moisture. And by getting rid of your compaction more and more, you'll get less and less runoff. But they are an ongoing problem, and it's just a maintenance thing. And none of this stuff can just be put in and forgotten. It's all got to be maintained. But I don't do too much deep planting now. This is a contract job I did for a guy, but because you get rid of your compaction, it just makes, even in dry going, tough conditions, much more easily to go to depth to plant a crop. I've got a lot of fellas often ring me up saying, thank God you talked me into this. We've been able to plant a crop this year and our neighbours didn't have a chance because theirs was like a brick. So it can be a big deal. We do this sometimes when we get country that's got too bare, like through the drought. We're still in the 8th year of drought. We'll put in furrows to catch storms, because when you get bare, the water will run around and run off the paddock. We catch it, and then we'll go back and plant right in the bottom of that furrow. So here again, because your soil's nice and uncompacted, you can do this sort of thing. And with the ability of your 2 centimetre, you can come back accurately and put it right back in the same place. Even, that's a 27 metre rig. We can just plant within an inch of whatever and works really well. The future, well, we're going to have robots and driverless tractors and whatever. And I think it's pretty exciting. I've got my first robot coming in a couple of months, one of these. And it'll be on 3 metres and 30 foot, and we'll see what happens. I'm just going to put my foot in the water and see. Even now, country gets sold at home a bit, and there's no facts and figures on it, but people are starting to pay more for country that's been under controlled traffic for a period of time, that they know the guy's been putting on the right nutrition on his crops and hasn't been mining the country, and that they haven't got a weed resistance and tolerance problem. So these things, I'm not sure how it's all going to be recorded and numbers put on it, but more and more it's going to be, you know, if you want top money for your place, you will have to have all this right. If you've abused it and driven all over it, you're not going to get the money. So here's another reason to do it properly. And the other big thing, I think, is being able to maintain our social licence to farm. You know, we've got a lot of resistance. You've seen a bit of it in the papers lately through the social media and people that really don't know what they're talking about, but they're pretty powerful in the social media. Even if they're shot down in flames later on, they don't seem to give a shit. So we really have to try and do this right. Not only do it right, we've got to show that we're doing it right and get it through to the public. We've got to keep working on that side of it. So, yeah. And the conclusion, it comes down to real basics. A soil pit is what you need to do. And do them yourself. Get an excavator or a backhoe or something and just go and dig a hole. It just tells the whole story, especially if you've been to one and with someone who knows what they're talking about, and you can see what happens. This is not a soil pit, but this is a bit of erosion on a place, and that's the 3 metre control tracks. They're like rock walls, and this is just showing you what is happening under the ground. This was in 2011 when we had big floods, and we had 9 or 11 flows or something that summer, and it made a hell of a mess. And what happened in my country, anywhere where there was something to push water, it'd do this, and then it'd waterfall over those tram lines and dig out, and then the tram line would collapse, and I ended up with 1.5 metre deep gutters about 4 metres wide and 400 or 500 metres long. And everyone said, what a disaster. I said, well, it is, but look what it's shown. Look what we've done. In the old days, all it did was take the top, that much dirt off, everything underneath was compacted. You'd go and scratch it all up again and away you go. But I mean, you had a compacted layer, a plough pan. And so what we've done to our country is just quite incredible. And every now and then, if you get something like this, well, it's part of your maintenance. I carted about 7,000 or 8,000 tonne of dirt back into those, went and picked it up out of the table drains or whatever, and you wouldn't even know it had happened now. So it's a good problem. And we've changed things to manage it better, but yeah, it's all go ahead. I think after the amount of time we've been doing it, I reckon our soil's still getting better, and a lot of our country's been, you know, as you saw, in 20 years now, and it's a black cracking soil that should do its own thing, but it just responding so well, and we've got some really heavy country that's probably responded better than anything else. So I think any soil will benefit from doing it properly. And the end product is you can grow more quantity and better quality, and that's what we've all got to do. We've got to feed and clothe everyone, and we've just got to do it better, but charity starts at home. We've got to do a bit better ourselves too. You know, farming's always a wild sort of a game, but if you can take your calculated risk and lower it a bit, it's always a plus. Thank you.